Well, apparently, there's still a beef brewing between Golden Boy Promotions and PBC. Well, I don't think PBC is even concerned about Golden Boy's Promotions as much as Golden Boy Promotions is concerned about PBC. Because if you go back and listen to majority of the interviews that Bernard Hopkins himself and Oscar De La Hoya have been conducting since 2015, even up until last week, you would discover that there's a still bitter taste in the mouths of De La Hoya and Hopkins. And the bitter taste that's still left in their mouths stems from a 2015 $300 million lawsuit that was filed on behalf of Golden Boy Promotions against Al Haymon. Well, they basically accused Al Haymon of the antitrust lawsuit, which basically stated that Al Haymon was attempting to monopolize on the entire sport of boxing by conducting exclusive deals and business transactions with all of the major networks and even quote unquote squatting on venues, according to the lawsuit, to be able to shut out Oscar De La Hoya, Bernard Hopkins, and Golden Boy Promotions with regards to putting on and promoting events. Now, the $300 million lawsuit was dropped. Al Haymon and his attorneys did an excellent job in court, apparently, and they proved their case and then disproved De La Hoya and Bernard Hopkins and Golden Boy Promotions case. And basically, they proved that they, meaning Al Haymon and his executives of his multi-business entities, basically wasn't attempting to monopolize on the sport of boxing because they've conducted business with all of the networks, including Bounce TV, Spike TV, Fox, ESPN, and even, of course, Showtime. And they've done business with a litany of promoters, such as Tom Brown, Bob Arum, and even Lou DiBella, and even Oscar De La Hoya, and Golden Boy Promotions. But the difference between those promoters is that most, or not all, if not all rather, most, if not all, of Golden Boy Promotions cards from back then were basically mainly Al Haymon managed fighters. So when the big blow up happened between all of these individuals and parties involved, Al Haymon basically took the fighters and he started his own banner of events known as Premier Boxing Champions. And it seems to me that Golden Boy executives are still bitter and still have a salty taste in their mouths because it seems like they have not recovered. And what I mean by recovered is very simple. They haven't had a lot of different fighters that they are promoting in the interim of their rebooting of their business operations ever since Al Haymon took his managed fighters over to create PBC. And I mean, they do have Ryan Garcia today. I think he is their number one cash cow as of now. And they used to promote a superstar, a pay-per-view mega superstar in Canelo Alvarez. But of course, that relationship dissolved. The bottom line is this. I come to a very great conclusion. And if you know me well enough, particularly here on my channel, you will discover sometimes I use a lot of onomatopoeias, similes, and even metaphors. So I have a metaphor to basically conclude on both businesses, both business models, and hopefully the beef can be resolved. Because Ryan Garcia is scheduled, according to De La Hoya, to fight Tank Davis in April. And even though Tank Davis is not directly signed to Mayweather Promotions, he is still being promoted through the Premier Boxing Championships banner, right? And he's also still being promoted by PBC affiliated promoters that Al Haymon usually use anyway. Now, here's my metaphor. Al Haymon owns product. And I'm not calling the fighters product in a negative or disparaging way. I just want y'all to stay with me. PBC and Al Haymon own product. Let's use the product as an example of cell phones, right? So PBC owns cell phones. De La Hoya and minority partner Bernard Hopkins owns, let's say, Golden Boy Promotions, which is an actual building, a location. So there were cell phones that were being sold and advertised and marketed in a location. We're going to call it a phone store, right? So basically the building is there. The phone store becomes official. And this is the official location where the cell phones will be sold, marketed, and advertised. But unfortunately, the owner of the cell phones or the product and the building owner decided to part ways for whatever reason. So the owner of the cell phones basically took all of the product, the cell phones, out of the location and basically created his own location to store, sell, advertise, and market the cell phones. Well, the problem with the building over there, that building where the cell phones were taken out of, well, that building was vacant at one time, and now it produces and sells, market, and advertise its own cell phones. The only difference is that it's only a few variety of cell phones now. And not only that, but it's like when Al Haymon took his cell phones, he had Android cell phones and iPhone cell phones, where over there, well, De La Hoya, Golden Boy, like they have like Boost mobile phones. Well, at least that's how I see it. And the bottom line is PBC has grown to be able to market, sell, and even advertise more cell phones and have been mixing and matching cell phones and have been doing a great job. And so if you look at Golden Boy Promotions, they don't have a whole lot of stable of fighters. They just have like a handful of cell phones right now. And their service is okay, but it's not as good as like an Android or 5G service through iPhone and Android. And so I think that's where the beef still lies. And because the cell phone service differentiates between the two, and one cell phone company is basically growing exponentially, and the other one is kind of like stagnant, and you really don't have a lot of variety of cell phones. And I think that's what the issue is with regards to the beef. And I think the beef is basically leaving a salty taste and bitter taste in the mouths of De La Hoya and Bernard Hopkins, because they keep on making references to PBC, Al Haymon, and their business operations as if Al Haymon is not doing fighters good. In fact, Al Haymon is probably charging the least amount of management fees than any other manager and possibly promoters. Well, that's my take on it. I just wanted to make sure that I followed up with the video that I did with the Ryan Garcia versus Tank Davis fight. And hopefully, just hopefully, we really actually get to see that fight this spring of 2023. I'm Manager Marty. Till next time.